So, welcome to the One Spark at a Time with me, Rabbi Adam Miller. A Jewish mystical legend tells at the beginning of creation, the world was perfect. The divine essence rested in sacred vessels. One day, the vessels cracked and then shattered, scattering sparks of holiness all around the world. It is our responsibility and mission to do acts of tikkun olam, to repair the broken world around us. Each time we do a good deed, we are gathering one more of those holy sparks and making the world a little more whole and holy. In this series, we will meet individuals who are doing the sacred work of repairing the world one spark at a time. Today, my guest is Stephen Popper, founder, president, and CEO of Meals of Hope, a remarkable organization addressing food insecurity locally and nationally through meal packing and food pantries. Their mission is to inspire communities to come together to end hunger. Steve, welcome to One Spark at a Time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you.
Kind of embarrassed to be be classified one of those sparks. So, thank you.
Oh, don't be so humble, Steve. You definitely belong in this program, and are certainly someone who is making our world a better place. Tell me, how are things with you right now?
Busy. Busy is the understatement. We have converted all of our food pantries to drive-up food pantries, and the numbers are absolutely exploding. We're working to make sure that we're feeding our community.
I can only imagine what the work is like now, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to speak about that. You know, we've known each other now for 10 years. It's hard to believe that. And in full disclosure for those who are listening, I'm also on the board at Meals of Hope. So I know some of what happens behind the scenes, but even with all of that, I am truly still in awe of your personal story. For those who know, you didn't begin your professional career with the plan to save the world. Tell our audience about your work prior to Meals of Hope.
So I actually spent 28 years in the wholesale lumber business, and I was spending my time buying and selling forest products all over the world. And honestly, it's the last thing I ever expected to be doing was running a nonprofit.
Wow, from lumber to feeding the hungry, that's quite a leap. Often there's an event or a person who's helped us transform. Who played that role in your life?
So very clearly, it was my mother.
Very fitting for a podcast
Absolutely.
by a rabbi that the mother is the one who.
Absolutely. And so as I said, I was buying and selling lumber all over the world. And one day my mother came to me, and we're from a very, very close family. And she said that she, along with some of my aunts, were trying to help a very poor school in Haiti. And the reality is the kids couldn't learn because they didn't have any food.
Wow.
And my mother, we kind of joke that she's kind of a vacuum and kind of picks up information from anyone and everyone that you can imagine. And she had heard about a food program that was being done in the Midwest. So she said to me, she said, you know, Steve, if I can get you some food, would you please ship it to Haiti for me? I kind of like, oh my gosh, what's the crazy scheme that you're looking at? And I said, well, come to my office, let's talk about it. And honestly, I thought it was going to be the end of the conversation. But as all good mothers can do, she just had just enough information that kind of whetted my appetite of learning about it. And so explored it and saw that there was nothing like a food packing program in Southwest Florida. So this was in 2007. In June and July, I went throughout the community and invited people to come to a packing event at Naples High School in August. Really had no idea what was going to happen and who was going to show up. And we ended up having over 500 people show up, and we packed 135,000 meals. And it was a transformational moment. I went home. I think my feet were about 3 feet off the ground. That experience of bringing all these people together to do good, and was just amazing. So I needed to send 8,000 of those 135,000 meals to Haiti. I did. Keep my mother happy. And
Of course,
then
keep your
gave,
mother happy. That's important.
which is very important. And then went around and gave the food away locally. And I'm embarrassed to say that, as I'm calling around, someone finally said, "Did you call the food bank?" And embarrassingly, I said, "What's a food bank?" And I called them and they said, "Well, we'll try it, no promises." And they tried the meals, and actually it was a terrible tasting meal, no longer producing. But they said, "We'll take whatever you can come up with." Well, I was still working full time selling lumber and what have you, and but said, that we did 135,000 meals that first time. I
Uh-huh.
have a goal. Let's see if we can pack 1 million meals in the community in a year. And sure enough, we exceeded that. So I guess the moral of the story is no matter how old you are, you still got to do what your mother said.
I think that's a good lesson at any point in life. It's amazing to me because, in part, when people often think about helping the hungry, it's in terms of how can I donate money so that food can be bought, or how can I just bring food? And yet, clearly, you went outside of the box. How did you conceive that first meal packing concept?
Well, as I said, I took the idea of what was going on in the Midwest and brought it here. And so our very first meal was really a terrible tasting rice meal that was being sent overseas. And that's the difference between starvation overseas and hunger in the United States. And I'm a real believer that even though we've shipped millions of meals overseas, we have to take care of the people that are our neighbors. And so it was really important that we also had a meal that was both nutritious and tasted good.
Yeah.
So we changed the meal very rapidly to instead of this rice meal to a beans and rice casserole, which beans and rice fits so many people's ethnicity of eating. And we did that, and from there we've actually done 5 meals now. Um, all taste great, and but what was so important to me, Rabbi, was not only are we feeding people, but we're giving people the opportunity to give back in the community. It's so easy to write a check,
Hmm.
but honestly, when you write a check, that personal satisfaction may only last as long as um, the ballpoint ink takes to dry. But when you're bringing people together, and as 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 you know, with Mitzvah Day, to bring people together and give them the opportunity to give back and do something hands-on, meaningful for a couple hours. And we really make sure that we try not to go over 2 hours because we found 2 hours is lots of fun. 2 hours and 10 minutes feels like work. So we really try to make sure that we stay within that 2 hour period.
Yeah.
But sometimes the community involvement almost is more important than actually producing the meals.
That's an important piece of this, is that sense of community that you create when you have on those meal packing events. As you said, we have the opportunity to do this each year at Temple Shalom for Mitzvah Day, and one of the comments I often get on Mitzvah Day is a sense of amazement at the variety of meals that you have created along the way. You said there's 5 types currently. Can you share those with us?
Sure. So our first one is our bean and rice casserole. Then we do a fortified macaroni and cheese. We do a fortified pasta with tomato sauce. We do a cinnamon sugar diced apple oatmeal. And lastly, we do a chicken flavored vegetable and rice soup. And in all of those meals, we add 21 different vitamins and minerals uh, to boost the nutritional content. And everyone except the soup and the oatmeal, we add soy protein to increase the protein content.
That's remarkable, and it makes such an impact to be able to have those nutritious meals for people to eat. And it's I'm thinking about, as you made this transition, what helped you to see that this was not just a one-time event, but that you could do it on a more long-term basis?
Well, fortunately, I was I actually had the luxury of doing this part-time just as a, just a kind of a fun thing to do for 4.5 years. And at that point, it was, I had the opportunity. I had a wonderful partner in the lumber industry, and he kept wanting to retire, and he's 20 years older than mine. He had the majority of the shares, and it was, Steve, I want to retire. And I said, "Oh, come on, you could do another year." And we did that for about 3 years, and at that point, it was, you know what, I don't want to buy him out, sold the company, and I really wanted to see what would happen, and with Meals of Hope, if I spent, my full time doing that. And that's when we had just absolutely explosive growth. And we went from just doing meal packing to looking at really the community and how are we best able to impact the community. And that was there's a unit of measure called pounds per person in poverty. And at that point, I was a member of the board of the Heritage Faith and Food Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in Collier County that the numbers of poundage given out per person in poverty in Collier County were lower than any other of the 5 counties in Southwest Florida. And the reason is, at that point, is that we just didn't have enough food pantries in our community. Very few people are saying, well, gee, let's open up food pantries. So we started to do that. And we opened up our first one in Golden Gate City, where we looked and tried to see where the greatest need was, and shortly thereafter that we opened up 2 more. So we started opening up these food pantries, and our last major crisis in the community was Irma, and so I looked at the numbers that we did giving out food both pre-hurricane and immediately after.
Uh-huh.
So if you remember, the hurricane was in September. So the year of Irma, we went and we had given out about 750,000 pounds of food at 3 pantries from January through August. Then Irma hit, and even though we had tremendous damage at our warehouse, we were able to continue to give out food, and we actually in the next 6 weeks gave out over 850,000 pounds, and we ended up giving out 2.2 million pounds of food that year.
That's remarkable. So just by seeing that statistic and realizing what was going on, that there was a low amount of food available, you made that transition. Was it hard to go from being the packing guy to now having a food pantry model?
Yes, it was not an easy transition, but we wanted to see how best to impact our community. And so we then started doing actually more packing events outside of Southwest Florida. And we use it as a social enterprise. What I mean by that is, let's take St. Matthew's House as an example. They operate thrift stores.
For those who don't know, St. Matthew's House is a local homeless shelter. It's the only one in Collier County.
Thank you. So they have thrift stores, and they want you to go in and buy a couch. Well, they really don't care if it's a couch. They want you to go buy something because the revenue from that allows them to go do their mission, which
Sure.
is substance abuse and homelessness. Well, we took the idea of our meal packing and did the same thing. So we do packing events all over the United States, and what happens there is that we invoice a group or what have you in Nebraska as an example, and we bring food there, groups pack the meals there, and the food stays. So we're helping the hunger problem in Nebraska, but the revenue from that comes back to Southwest Florida to help pay for our food pantries.
So let's not lose that piece though. So you bring the food there, so you're not only engaging in a food project and raising revenue to continue doing more, you're also creating a massive transportation piece as you're bringing the equipment in pieces. I imagine your work in the lumber industry helped prepare you for that aspect at Meals of Hope.
Actually, very much so, very much so. And the logistics and transportation costs and whatever, it's terribly important that we do that. And we work very hard on that. And actually, with our 990, if you take a look at it, 97% of our funds go towards programs. So we really work very diligently to make sure that we're good stewards of people's money by doing this as competitively as possible.
Sure.
So
going from Naples, Florida to Nebraska, that's quite a distance. What's the furthest packing event you've done from the home base?
well, we've gone to Oregon, so I guess that would be that would be the farthest. I've had people in Alaska that have asked me about it, but I haven't gotten that far yet.
Haven't quite worked out those
right.
Pieces yet. So you're talking about all these different packing events, and that first year, I know you said the goal was 1 million, and it's now been 13 years, and since 2012, you've been full-time with Meals of Hope. Over the last 13 years, roughly how many meals have been packed at these different events?
So we've actually, I was looking at that last night. We need to change our website. We've actually packed over 65 million meals.
That's remarkable. Wow.
And just last year, we packed over 10 million meals. And of course, now we're not doing any packing events.
Sure.
Because of what's going on in bringing people together.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that's a good transition, recognizing that right now during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, clearly you can't have a packing event where several hundred people are gathering together to bring these meals together, but yet you're still making an impact. Can you share with our audience a little bit of what's going on right now?
Sure. So what we did, let me just step back one second. So we saw what we did after Irma. And at that point, we did a strategic plan, and we said, all right, clearly where we need to be going is concentrating on feeding people in our community through food pantries. And so we did some mapping, and we looked at and we looked at the elementary schools in Collier County specifically. And we took and the reason why we did elementary schools is because the demographics are much denser than, say, a high school. Mm-hmm. So we looked in which elementary schools had a 60% or greater reduced breakfast and lunch program. And then we took that, and out of the 30 elementary schools in Collier County, 22 of them are a greater than 60% need. We then took the existing food pantry list and overlaid it on top of those schools, and it showed very clearly where the gaps were in food pantries. And so we've taken that, and we have now grown to 9 different food pantries. 8 of them are weekly, and 1 of them is every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And our goal is still this year to open up additional food pantries. But so that's where we are with our food pantries. And then at these food pantries, we distribute both frozen meat, fresh produce, canned goods, dry goods. The Meals of Hope meal is only a small portion of what we give out. And we actually we distribute diapers, feminine hygiene products, and adult incontinence products at our pantries as well.
So what inspired you to continue broadening what you were doing besides just hunger?
Well, I think, the goal in life is to, you can't just be selfish and say what you're going to do for you or your family. It's, we're the greater family is our community.
Sure.
So by helping the people in greatest need in our community, we're helping the whole family. So having that, with that idea, there was no question that we need to help our neighbors.
So throughout all of this, Steve, your drive is phenomenal. I don't know sometimes where you find the energy to keep doing these things. Really, I'd like you to take a moment and share with us, when you wake up in the morning, what is it that gives you energy? And on the flip side, what is it that's keeping you up at night that you still want to see addressed?
Well, my phone is attached to me, and much to my wife's unhappiness, that I'm receiving emails or sending emails at all hours of the night. Um, so that seems to happen. Um, what keeps me up at night, certainly right now, is what every person in the United States is feeling, or the world is feeling right now. We're dealing with COVID. How long is it going to last?
Hmm.
Have I purchased enough food, the purchasing of food that I've done so far? How long will that last?
Right.
Um, like a business, I mean, our main source of funding has completely dried up, which is our meal pack. So I'm going through, again, the same exercise like every business is. What is our burn through rate? How long can I survive as if we have zero revenue coming in? And quite honestly, our board is very cognizant of the goal is to help people.
Right.
And I think we're going to try to give out food to until the time comes where we have no money left, or we've been to purchase anything, or we've been mandated to stop. And I don't see that happening with being mandated to stop.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting to be at the level so far where we are at our food pantry.
Well, share with our audience a little bit where things are now and where they were before we got to COVID-19.
So last week when I did the numbers, we were about a 94% increase over a month, over 3 weeks ago. I expect that we'll serve 2,000 families this week. Just looking at yesterday's numbers, and typically we have 2 pantries a day, except one on during the weekend, but we have 2 Monday through Thursday. But looking at the numbers, just
Steve, hold on. I think we lost you there for a moment. Welcome back, Steve. Sorry, we lost you there for a moment. I lost your audio. Hold on. There we go. All right. So we lost you. Start back at the beginning talking about the food pantries and what's happening.
so our food pantries, we looked at the numbers from last week. We compared to, I think, 3 weeks ago. I think we're up. At that point we were up 94%, and it's continued to grow. Just looking at yesterday's numbers, where we had one in Bonita and one in Golden Gate Estates, we served 648 families just yesterday. From 3 weeks
Wow.
ago, that's
Yeah.
117% increase from 3 weeks ago.
117% increase in 3 weeks. And 3 weeks ago, we were still already in COVID-19.
Yes. And so what we have done is we've converted all of our food pantries to drive up pantries.
Yeah.
So looking at social distancing and trying to protect both our customers and our volunteers, everything's drive up. They sign in, or we have we're getting that information, and then from there they move forward. We ask them to pop the trunk. We and putting product into cars, and off they go.
Yeah, it's a remarkable transformation to shift gears. I mean, you've gone from being the packing people to the food pantry people to now the contactless food pantry people. That's quite a shift of energy. How long do you think this can be sustained?
I guess that's a $64,000 question. We've gone out and purchased almost $300,000 worth of food in the last month. that puts us into June and beginning of July arriving. I need to look at buying more, because I think unfortunately, I think the government is being extremely optimistic and thinking that things are going to get back to normal in May. It's going to take a while, and I expect our numbers at our food pantries will be at very high levels for the foreseeable.
I can understand that. So one of our attendees has asked a question. They'd like to know, what steps do you think it will take before you feel comfortable shifting back to the meal packing? What are the steps you think will be needed before you can come back to having those events?
Well, if they have participated in the mitzvah days, what we do, and people who aren't familiar with it, we typically work in groups of 10, and that becomes a team, and we then have teams throughout the room. I have looked at redesigning the way we package meals in a socially distant fashion of keeping people 6 feet apart.
Mm-hmm.
We have potentially family members work together, because they're already keeping distance with on the outside, but there's obviously interacting together on a daily basis. Anyway,
okay.
So if I took my family as an example, my wife, myself, and my son, we would work together at one area, and then 6 feet away would be another group of husband, wife, families, or whatever that would be able to do that. So we have looked at redesigning, and we can do that right now. And in fact, this week we sent out 3 small packing events to other parts of the country where they're going to try it.
Okay.
But clearly we can't get back to it until the government, not just the government, but the confidence of people come together is
higher than it is now. It's a safety concern for many, and it's understandable.
Exactly. Yeah, we're trying to help people. The last thing we want to do is to get anyone sick.
Yeah. Another question has come in along those lines. Right now, as you're doing this food pantry work, do you have enough volunteers, or what are ways that people can help make a difference right now through Meals of Hope?
So we right now we're asking for volunteers 2 different ways. One is at our food pantries,
Mm-hmm.
to help put the food into people's cars, but we're also asking local people to come together to our warehouse to assemble food kits. And what I mean by that is taking the dry items, canned goods, pastas, some of the things that that we can put into a grocery bag. And so by doing that, then at the trucks, then we can just put the bag of groceries in, and then on top of that, frozen produce. So we're asking volunteers to come, literally 10 people at a time, at these times to come together to do that. And what I would love to do is send you a link.
Well, why don't you share? Can you share? Can people find it on the Meals of Hope website?
We have a sign up genie associated with that, and I apologize, I can't tell you what that link is right this second, but I will get that for you in just a moment.
So if you go to www.mealsofhope.org, that's the main website, and you'll be able to find contact information there as well as volunteer opportunities. Correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Wonderful.
So that's one instance, and then I hate to say it, but we need financial help as well. What we would normally do with our meal packing, as I said, our expectation this year, we would have had about $800,000 come down to the bottom line to help fund our food pantries, and of course that's dried up. And on top of that, we're going out and purchasing a tremendous amount more food than what we ever expected to do. So we have our expenses have skyrocketed, and then also our revenue stream has severely changed.
We can understand that. And it's wonderful to hear about these opportunities people have as well to help your organization and to give back at this time, while we know many are hurting economically, emotionally, even physically right now. It's still important for us to have opportunities for those who are able to give back of their time and their resources to help the community. So thank you, Steve, for sharing those volunteer opportunities. A question, thinking beyond just your work at Meals of Hope, you were able to see a need. Thankfully your mom saw the need in Haiti for food for the students to help them, but you built on that. And from that, you created this whole enterprise of community building, of providing food, of helping those who are in need around you. What would you say to others who might themselves see an area of need, but are unsure of how to take that first step, or in your case, leap into action?
Take that leap. Take that leap. There's opportunities everywhere. I mean, right now, it's something as simple as sewing masks and handing them out. Something as simple as knocking on your neighbor's door and saying, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Can I bring any food back for you? I think, fortunately, I don't have young children anymore, but all the parents that are having to homeschool their children, and it's stressful enough in life right now, and then on top of that is trying to keep your children and teach your children. If you are so inclined, talk to your neighbors and say, look, I'll do a Zoom call with your children and I'll teach them for math for an hour, where you can then go and drink a cup of coffee in peace or something of that nature. There's so much, and by doing it, I promise you, and because this happened with Meals of Hope, is that the aid you're doing by giving back to people, the reality is that you're benefiting much more by giving back.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we love Mitzvah Day. It's the day of giving back, and it's I think everyone, and I've been fortunate enough to come to Temple Shalom for many years for Mitzvah Day. Everyone leaves smiling, whether or not whether they did Meals of Hope or did dog biscuits. I think years.
A lot of different projects happen on Mitzvah Day, and certainly if they do Meals of Hope, they're leaving smiling and perhaps covered in a little light dusting of the ingredients that they've been packing, but certainly with a smile on their face. I love the language at the beginning. Take that leap. To take that leap often requires some kind of faith and belief. And one of our audience members has asked, how does your faith tradition inspire you to do the holy work that you are doing?
I think faith is terribly important. I think if people don't have faith, regardless of what faith that happens to be, but if they don't have it, I think they're living a hollow life. And I think that I can't imagine a life without faith. So faith is terribly important.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know this is a very busy time for you, as all the pantries are at high level, as everything is going on. And I appreciate you taking the time to join us for the One Spark at a Time program. Again, I want to highlight what you mentioned before, that during this time of COVID-19, there are volunteer opportunities still available at Meals of Hope. For those who want to give, you can certainly do that. For those who want to volunteer your time, you're able to go through the website, www.mealsofhope.org, and use the Sign Up Genius. That's there to help you identify what projects need volunteers right now, as well as to maintain the safety protocol of no more than 10 people at one time at an event. And these volunteers are needed both in Collier and in Lee County. And I'd like to highlight another organization, because it's when we're doing this One Spark at a Time, we want to provide other ways that people can help as well. especially during COVID-19. We mentioned earlier St. Matthew's House, the homeless shelter here in Collier County, which recently put out an ask for more food donations. They are desperately in need of food to feed those who are within their walls. And certainly we know that during this pandemic, not only is food insecurity a greater issue, but so is homelessness and access to safe shelter. So if those who are able to have food that they can donate to St. Matthew's House, they are greatly in need of it. So that's another opportunity for you to give generously and to make a difference in our community. Thank you, Steve, once more for joining me. I'm Rabbi Adam Miller. Thank you to all those who are listening and watching us on Zoom or Facebook Live. Later on, this will be posted on YouTube for those who wish to follow up and watch this in its entirety. We'll also be having a podcast coming out shortly, so you can listen to this on any of your favorite audio devices through whatever streaming service you prefer. But Steve, my friend, thank you. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.